Do you want to start a glamping business and you don't know where to begin? Well, then stay tuned because this video is for you. Starting a glamping business can seem like a really overwhelming project to undertake. I know because I am in the process of starting a legal glamping business. Now, anyone can just throw up a tent on some land and put it up on Airbnb and hope for the best. But you don't want to do that. You want to start a proper business that is not going to be at risk of getting shut down by the county and is going to make you money for years to come. And yes, this is a complex process. And here's the other thing. If you're doing it the right way, it's going to take you anywhere from 3 to 5 years to get this business up and running. But I promise you that if you do this right, you are going to have a very valuable business and skill set that is going to serve you for years to come. Now, the other thing is you're going to want to pay attention and watch this whole video, because at the very end, I'm going to give you the clutch play, the thing that you need to have in your corner in order to make your glamping business a success. So be sure to stay tuned. The first thing that you are going to need to do is to check the zoning in your county. And by the zoning, I really mean 2 separate issues. The first is what type of zone will allow you to put up the kind of glamping business that you want to do. For many counties, this is going to be either the commercial zone or an agricultural zone. Now, every county is going to be different, but I bet one of those 2 zones are going to be the area in which you can put up your business legally. And that's because counties are going to want businesses like a glamping business to not be in a residential zone. They're not going to want it to be too close to houses or perhaps too close to other businesses or offices. Okay, so that's the first part of zoning. The second part of zoning is also super important, and that is what type of classification within the zoning use table does a glamping business count. Now, some counties may classify it as a campsite. Some may classify it as like your typical commercial type of business or something else. In my county in particular, my type of glamping business, which is going to be permanent structures like small cabins, that could be considered either a campsite or a rustic retreat. In my county, there is what's called the rustic retreat, and that is how my business is going to be classified. So be sure to check with your county planning and use office, and that could be called something different in your county, but be sure to check with them to see what zones are available in your county, in what zone can you run a glamping business, and how would the county classify your type of business, because that is then going to dictate the requirements that you need to follow in order to get a permit to run this kind of business. Let's move on to the second thing that you're going to need to do. The second thing is going to be your utilities. And by that, I mean water, sewage, electricity. Water. Are you going to tap into the city or zone water, or are you going to need to dig a well? Or are you going to need to bring water in like through a cistern? The location of your land is really going to dictate your water. So if it's close to what the city or county provides, you may be able to tap into that system. If not, you're probably going to have to dig a well or find some other way to bring in water. Next is electric. Again, the location of your land is also going to dictate this. If you are close to electric poles, fantastic, you can tap into the grid. If not, you're gonna need an alternative energy source. You can do solar or you can do off-grid. Sewage. Sewage is going to be huge, and frankly, I think is gonna be one of the biggest hurdles, if not the biggest hurdle. You're gonna either need to be able to tap into the city or county sewage system, or you're gonna have to put in what's called a septic tank. And a septic tank is a tank that goes underground and it catches all of the waste and the water that comes from your plumbing system. The challenge when it comes to a septic system is that it can't be put just anywhere. It has to be far enough away from dwellings, and it has to be buried underground in the right type of soil. If the soil lets water run through it too quickly, then you may not be able to put a septic system in there. And for more on the limitations of a septic and why septic, I can do another video. I'm not gonna go into depth here, but you're gonna have to perform what is called a perk test. And that is done by an engineer, and they're going to take a sample of the soil and they're gonna run water through it, and the rate at which it goes through, that's going to determine whether you perk or not. If it's slow enough, great. If it's too quick, no good. Okay, I'm also classifying this third piece still within the utilities, and it is incredibly important, and that is what type of roadway access are you gonna have, because things like parking and accessibility by emergency vehicles is going to be something that your county is gonna require is available. What they are concerned about is making sure that in the event of an emergency, such as a health emergency of one of your campers, or there's a fire at your site, that emergency vehicles are gonna be able to easily access your property and be able to handle the situation. So make sure that wherever you choose, you have great roadway access, because without that, in all likelihood, your business is gonna be a no-go. So before you even buy land or a house with land on it, you're really going to have to look at the zoning and all of your utilities as just the first step before you decide to put an offer in on a property. Because the last thing that you want to do is buy something for your glamping business and it's not viable for the business that you want to do. Okay, the next thing that you are going to need to look at, the third thing, is the terrain. And by the terrain, I'm specifically talking about, are there any easements, meaning any restrictions on what you can do on that property? The easements can be put on by the county to conserve some of those resources. So there could be a conservation easement that would limit the amount of clearing that you could do of that land. An easement could be for a neighbor because a neighbor needs to use your land in order to access their land. There could be any number of reasons that there are easements, but you'll need to check whether there are any existing on your property. Next, you're gonna have to look at the steepness or the grade of the terrain. And some counties may not permit you to build on anything that is too steep. They also may not let you build if there's existence of water, like a creek, or there could be endangered species on your land. So you're gonna have to check all of these things on the terrain to know whether or not you can even build. And to answer questions about terrain, you're really gonna have to talk to an engineer who specializes in your county, and you're gonna have to get them the plat as well as the contours that show the steepness of the terrain in order for them to be able to say what can or cannot be built on that property. And I would expect you to actually have to put out some money in order to answer these questions. For example, you may need to take a perk test, and that's gonna cost you a few $100s. You may also need to consult with an engineer and pay them an hourly rate to at least answer your questions and let you know the viability of your land. All right, the fourth thing that you are gonna need to do before getting started with your glamping business is to get a realtor who specializes in the type of property that you want to buy. This is usually not going to be your run-of-the-mill single-family home realtor. You're going to need someone who either specializes in raw land or is a commercial realtor. And these two types of realtors are likely to have the type of experience that you need to guide you through this process. They're going to know, for example, about the due diligence that I just talked about that's going to have to be performed before you buy land. They're also likely to have the types of relationships that you are going to need to tap into in order to answer these questions. They're going to be able to recommend engineers and other experts who can help you figure out if your glamping business is going to be viable. Now, before I get into the fifth and final first thing that you're going to need to do to start your glamping business, please hit like if you found this video helpful and subscribe for more content like this. The fifth thing that you need to do before you get started with your glamping business is to find an advocate in the county. And I'm going to recommend a very specific person whose job it is to be your advocate. And that person is going to be the economic development director or someone in that office. The staff in an economic development office of a county, their job is to bring business into the county. So it is in their best interest if you are able to get a glamping business that is legal and is up and running and is bringing visitors to their area. You're going to increase their revenue. So they're going to want to work with you. I highly recommend that you take just a simple drawing. You can consult with someone on Fiverr or some other site like that to create a rendering for you of what your site is going to look like. I also recommend getting a business plan together, and you can use a simple Canva template to talk about the vision for your project, show them what it's going to look like at completion, what the impact is going to be from an economic perspective, and from a tourist perspective. You can easily look up what the tourist statistics are within your area and show how your project is going to bring more visitors and increase the revenue of your town or county. That's it for today's video. If you want to become an Airbnb host, click down below for my referral link. You will earn $75 after you host your first guests, and I'll receive compensation as well. If you want links to all of the items that I recommend to furnish and decorate your Airbnb, those links are also below. It's a completely free shopping list. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Bye-bye.